Our relationship to things and places is such right now that we're starting to expand the capability of the networks that we've built to encompass things like artificial intelligence and robotics and machine learning. The problem is that we still don't have a secure foundation to do that on, right? When you look back, the protocols that we use to run this network are dated back to the 60s and 70s. There was no requirement for security back then. Things like DNS, NTP, BGP, all of those protocols are not secure. And as a result, we're about to introduce machine learning, autonomous vehicles, and robotics into a platform which can only be described as vulnerable. When we do that, there will be serious consequences, which I've predicted are going to probably cost us a great deal of money, potentially involve attacks on critical infrastructure, and involve us in a prolonged cyber war, quite possibly with enemies that we created, especially when it comes to AI. Can you imagine a surgical robot with a vulnerability that's exploited by hackers? It's in these contexts that I think about the network that we've built and putting these devices that are going to make decisions for us. Now, decisions aren't necessarily bad, but decisions at machine learning speed could have grave consequences. What happens when the machine decides on a course of action that you don't agree with? Can you even shut that decision off? Could it have catastrophic consequences in the case of, a plant, a manufacturing, a smelter, and those type of things? So as ICS networks become, I'm going to say, integrated with machine learning and artificial intelligence, and when you throw robots into the mix as well, you have a potentially dangerous situation. I think there's a growing discussion on those particular risks and vulnerabilities. The ICS SCADA security folks have made tremendous amounts of progress, but simply because of two things: government regulation and also the realization that their risk mitigation failure could have catastrophic consequences. However, nobody has talked about extending GDPR to artificial intelligence, robotics, and autonomous systems. I know that the EU Parliament has been discussing how to provide those entities, if you will, rights, the way a corporation would have rights. But we're in the early stages of this, and we're just starting to figure out liability and due diligence at the endpoint level. We need to extend that and extend it quickly into things like autonomous vehicles. We need to be the leaders. We need to be the ones that stand up and say, hey, secure cryptography is necessary to protect the integrity of these systems. We need to be the folks saying that. The second thing is we need more of us to say that. We have a crisis when it comes to the number of people that are thinking about security and doing security. So we really have to take an educational approach for that next generation that will be interacting with robots and autonomous systems. We have to revisit our approach when it comes to governance, when it comes to legislation and regulation.